Hello, everyone. How you doing? And you're very welcome to this week's for last word in Formula One with myself, Aidan Raftery, and of course, as always, we have our Formula One expert, Michael O'Grady. Hello, Michael. How are you? Are you well?
I'm not too bad at all. I don't know what Roscommon is like today, but I'm building the boat.
Well, I can tell you, I can confirm that it is lashing rain here, and of course, you're
Yes.
in the sunny southeast, so it never rains there apparently.
Oh, I don't know about that. Seriously, I'm building the boat out there now at the minute. I've got a bit of wood for the car, and
Oh, so Noah's
put
Ark.
the
You're doing a bit of a Noah's Ark, then, are you?
yeah. Formula One arc.
So we're going to be looking back at the British Grand Prix in Silverstone last weekend. But before that, we have a news of a competition for you, and I'm interviewing Noel Byrne, who is the son of the rattler Mickey Walsh, who played hurling for Tipperary and hurled against no less a man than the Bowl Christy Ring. And Noel was very kind to send me a copy of the Rattler's book. There you go. Noel is who I'm interviewing, and his father was the Rattler, and he gave me a copy of his book to give away. So if you're interested in entering, it's very simple. All you do is send an email and put in the subject. Just put in the subject the Rattler and give your name and your name, address, and phone number. And we'll have the draw on the 4th of August. So keep an eye out for promotions on the show on both Friday Sport and of course GA View for more details. And so you can start entering as soon as you can. And we look forward to talking to you and hope you enjoyed the interviews. We had episode 2 this week, so that'll be on later on in the show. So we're looking back on a very good British Grand Prix, of course, home soil for Lewis Hamilton. And I suppose really, in any Grand Prix, the host driver likes to win it. Not always possible, but I
No.
suppose how did Lewis get on in this one?
Well, in qualifying, Lando Norris actually was the better of the two English drivers. It's nice to know, somebody like that, who really hasn't done. He isn't really around Formula One that much. You know what I mean? The McLarens are going very well at the minute. It's nice to see a British driver right up there, and of course, Lando. Ended up in second place. Well, we know who ended up in first place after qualifying. I mean, it's nearly pointless talking about that one. As to say,
Yeah, I suppose.
But yeah, Lando did a great little job now, I have to admit, in the McLaren, with Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren in second place. They seem to be steadily making sort of progress over a McLaren, whereas Logan Sargent didn't actually do well this time. He came in at 14th. His one-off qualifying pace is normally massive, but he falls down the race pace. Poor Lewis could only manage 7th on the day, but George Russell again was in 6th place in front of him. It wasn't a Ferrari qualifying. I'll put it like that to you. It didn't go well at all. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc were fourth and fifth, which is something, after last week, I suppose maybe we did expect an awful lot from the two of those, maybe even a little bit too much from Ferrari. I mean, not every race is theirs, as to say. Well, we were talking about the track last week and how high speed the track is. Well, there's certain cars this is not going to suit. And we were talking about it last week that it wouldn't suit Aston Martin, and it didn't. Aston Martin didn't do it well at all. And it wouldn't suit McLaren, because McLaren were all pushed for Austria because they said Silverstone would not be their race. Yeah, they were kind of off because it was the race. I have to admit, the two McLarens held up very nicely there now. It's nice to see a team like McLaren doing so well, back at the top of the list again, as to say. It's nice to see it. It really is. A lot of the old teams have been, you'd like to see the likes of Williams doing better now again, if at all possible. But these things aren't always easy. You know
I
yourself.
suppose for Williams now to get back to where they were, or to, I suppose, dine at the top table, as to say. What is that? The way, like, there's a missing ingredient. What is the missing ingredient for Williams in order for them to get back to the top level again?
Frank Williams.
Oh,
he
finance.
was
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
was amazing. He was absolutely amazing, and like Claire is doing a great job. You can't knock that, but it's just they seem to be missing something. Claire is very very good, but Frank was charismatic. Frank was a driving force. He was everything with our team. Frank wanted to race, wanted to win. End of story. And I think Claire, she's very, very good. I'm not knocking Claire Williams, but I think they just need that bit more hunger, that little bit more development with the car, things like that. They just need to really get into it. They need a couple of better drivers too. I mean, you only have to look at Aston Martin. What's the first thing they did? They hired Sebastian Vettel, who is, yeah, he's on his last few seasons at the time, but it's a great way to get a car forward, getting an older driver because like they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? They know what's what, they know what's where, they know how to win, they know how to overtake. And it's the same with Fernando Alonso. Since they took on Fernando Alonso, what Sebastian did with the car is improve it. And now what Alonso's doing is improving it even more. So, I mean, I think Williams need to take a step back and get one of the sort of long in the tooth drivers in, when I put it that way, Gia, and perhaps just look at a few different things that are going on. I can't see it happening fast in Williams. I think just there's something a little bit less about it. There were Frank Williams was a force of nature. He wasn't winning, he wasn't happy, and that was it.
A bit like Paul Egan and yourself.
A bit like Paul Egan, yeah. Whereas at the moment, it's kind of, well, we're doing well, we're getting places and that. Whereas with Frank, that wouldn't have been good enough. End of story. Teddy would have been thrown out of the buggy, and that would have been the end of it. It's as simple as that.
And I suppose looking at qualifying and looking at the race, we said two aspects. One would be the I suppose the lap time, the average lap time in the race itself, and also the lap time kind of in qualifying, the average lap time. But also in that, I suppose the time that's got can also be dictated by the weather. So I suppose just discussing that a bit.
Well, qualifying one was very wet, we have to say. Definitely very, very, very wet. It wasn't a great day at all. And that's to be quite honest with you. So we were expecting a lot slower lap times, which is absolutely exactly what we got. And I'm just trying to look up the times here because I didn't have them handy on me. But it should be telling me what's going on here. We know Verstappen took the race. It'll come up in a few minutes, so I'll come back to that one if that's okay.
You'll have to give that whole mouse a poke there and get him to run around the Ferris wheel a bit faster.
I will actually, yes, absolutely. Well, hang on now. I was stupid in thinking that I could forget that one. Max Verstappen was fastest on the day. Why I didn't look at this, I don't know.
There you go.
Senior moment. Max Verstappen on the day was a 1:26.72. That was a pretty fast initial lap time. Now, if you go back to, shall we say, the fastest lap that's ever been done on the race, actually, the race results, if we can get to them. Max Verstappen, he did a time of 1:25.16. You can calculate that one up over 53 laps.
Was there much of a difference between the lap time last year and this year?
Well, the lap time last year was about a 1:25, which is quite quick. It wouldn't be far off that, to be quite honest with you, but that was sort of, you're getting close to different speeds there. I mean, the fastest lap in a race is 1:30.2. So you can see again, as Max Verstappen has done the fastest lap in the race. So I mean, it was pretty much, there's a couple of tenths in it, but that's about it, really. They are theoretically driving the same car, and Red Bull, well, they don't need to do an awful lot of improving on the cars at the moment, do they, really? So it was I think the qualifying time now that Max managed with a 1:26.7, that was incredibly quick if you think about it, compared to everything else. I mean, what have we got here? Pole position, 1:26.7. It actually has it up here already, which is it's quite fast, really. It's as quick as you're going to get, really. Last year, you had Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton right behind him, whereas of course this year, the way qualifying went, you had two McLarens behind him, and then two Ferraris. Now on the day itself, Yeah, day itself was a bit of a horse of a different colour, to be quite honest with you. Some people did really, really well, and some people did badly. Now, Lando Norris, as I've been talking about, he was incredible, I have to admit, in that car. He actually jumped Max Verstappen at the start. You don't hear that often, do you?
No, not really. No, apart from
You
yourself
don't
or
hear that
Egan that do it
often.
every now and again.
Yeah, and I mean the crowd went ballistic because he is actually a local driver. He's from around that area, so as you can probably guess, he made it look easy. And to be honest with you, the second McLaren of Oscar Piastri was on top of Max Verstappen. They were nearly side by side. It was only Max, getting it together and doing what he had to do um, to keep that place. He barely kept second place, I have to admit. Now, yeah, as the race went on, it only took 5 laps for Max to get past Lando. And to be honest with you, it was going to happen. And I'd say Norris didn't really put up as big a fight as he could have. But, that really wasn't a silly thing to do. A lot of people were giving out about that. But I mean, in a way, he's in second place. He is Perez in third at the moment. And the last thing you want to do is overcook those tires, wreck your car. A fight between him and Max Verstappen. Well, Max is going to win. It's the faster car, so you're going to knock yourself back, slow everybody down as well, and knock yourself back into the clutches of everything else. So I think what Norris was thinking was, look, second place is realistic. First place ain't going to happen. So why don't I protect second place? Now, I'm not saying he didn't do a little bit of ducking and diving and make it a little bit difficult for Max, but he could have made it more difficult, and he was criticised for that, which I thought was unfair because I thought he was doing the right thing. He's doing the right job. You know what I mean? He was going to bring that car home in second, and that was it. And he had pushed through in the first place for 5 laps. He proved the point.
And I suppose tire selection and pit stops, how did that go? Do you feel that affected it much, or did it go pretty much as you expected? Like, I mean, tire selection wise and that.
Tires were all over the place, to be quite honest with you. At one stage, Ferrari had tried hard twice. Now, the medium tires were only supposed to last X amount of laps, but were lasting and lasting and lasting and lasting, and no one could figure out why they were lasting so well. Whereas the hard tire, Charles Leclerc pulled in on his first pit stop to change the hard tire with the intention of, I'm going to go to the end of the race. Okay. But the hard tire was so slow, he actually had to pit at a later stage and go back onto medium tires. But the thing was, the medium tires were lasting so well around the track. It was totally unpredictable. Nobody expected it. Everyone thought it was going to be medium and then soft. And then people behind would go hard. And then medium or soft after that? Well, I suppose soft after hard anyway. But, they were just so bad, those hard tires. They just had to get rid of them. It's the one thing that absolutely wrecked Ferrari's day, because they put Leclerc on him. It didn't work. Leclerc came in and changed later on. You can't change straight away. You just knock yourself so far back, you're not going to recover. And then later on in the race, they went and put Carlos Sainz on the hard tires after seeing how bad they were for Charles Leclerc. And suddenly Carlos was dropping back, he was dropping back like hell, I have to admit. There was one stage towards the end of the race there, I see Carlos Sainz was absolutely struggling, and like 3 cars went by him in 4 corners, including his teammate. All went by him in like 4 corners. It was that slow. It was just unbelievable, I have to admit. Very disappointed because Carlos is a very good driver. It's just bad calls again from Ferrari, I have to admit. Very bad calls from Ferrari. It was, it's just one of those days, I suppose, in a certain way, but it is what it is. I was just looking here. I have a note on Yukio Tsunoda. I remember Sergio Perez was overtaking him there and took off the end plate spoiler of the car, which was a bit cheeky, I have to admit. No problems. Everyone went ahead. Everyone went racing ahead. But I did think that at the time when I was looking at it, I did think Perez he wasn't leaving enough space. If you get me. He just wasn't leaving enough space for the other drivers. And that did happen more than once in the race. People weren't, there is a kind of a race etiquette, will we put it that way, where you're overtaking someone, you leave the space, you don't run them off the track. You just don't run them off the track because it's dangerous on top of everything else. But no, he just decided he was going to do this, took a little end plate off, thankfully didn't get a puncture himself,
Right.
which was good because actually, there was a little bit of an issue earlier on or later on in the race, I should say, with punctures. We won't say why, but if Lance Stroll is going to hit people, someone's going to end up with a puncture, and it literally was just tipping the two cars together, nothing more, and we of course had a puncture. I was glad to see as well Kevin Magnussen. Yeah, that's just aren't really. I think they were expecting a lot more this year, but he pulls over at one stage of breakdown, flames coming out of the exhaust pipe on the car, because of course the exhaust pipe is quite high on the back. So people think it's the engine sometimes, but if you know a Formula One car, no, it's actually the exhaust. And of course the lads coming and putting that one out. It's not a thing you want to see happening. Your engine letting go. The funny thing is, I suppose Haas is on the Ferrari light engine because, it's like Mercedes. You can get the Mercedes engine. You don't exactly get the same engine as Mercedes are using themselves. And it's the same with Ferrari. And this Ferrari light engine, as I like to call it, it just doesn't really work. You know what I mean? It gets stuck a lot of the time.
And I suppose the race itself, Michael, would you say it was a tight enough race, or was it, or a close enough race, or was it fairly open, as in regards how it went overall?
There was a good few overtaking moves, all right. There was more mistakes really than anything else, but tighter race, yes. I mean, a McLaren staying, I think he went over the line at about just under 4 seconds behind Max Verstappen. It's about as tight as it gets really these days. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. I think I'm seeing here the first 10 were separated by 19, 20 seconds. That's actually not bad. That's a good tight race. Everyone sticking together. It was quite good. And I mean, Nick de Vries wasn't even lapped. It's unusual to see a race where no one is lapped. It was actually 11 wins in a row for McLaren, and they equaled the record of Red Bull, and they're actually equaling the record of McLaren, who were second. So there's a bit of a nice little thing there.
Trivia.
But Aston Martin were very slow in the race, I have to admit. They were really, really on the Achilles heel on the day. And I have to admit, Ferrari.
What would you put that down to, Michael?
The car just doesn't like the high-speed tracks as much. You get them on a little bit of a tighter track with better cornering and stuff like that, where you have to go, where there's a bit more slowing down and speeding up, shall we say. And suddenly that Aston Martin comes alive compared to the rest of the cars. I think just the top speed isn't as good as it could be.
Right.
But you can be sure Fernando Alonso is going to be back.
I suppose a few tweaks there, maybe here and there, between this race and the next. I mean, they have a weekend off now that they can kind of do a few tweaks to it between now and then, or will it make much difference?
That's what they'll probably do, but I don't think Aston Martin will be overly generous with the tweaks because they know their circuit's going to suit them and their circuit's not going to suit them. Tighter circuits don't really overly suit Mercedes, but they suit McLaren. And they suit Aston Martin. Now, McLaren said they didn't do well on high-speed circuits. Well, you could have blown me over. I think someone's telling pork pies because, of course, they came second and fourth, which was impressive.
Not bad.
So it really depends. And I think if we could all get Ferrari to stop making bad calls, bad decisions, and actually just sit down and get the drivers to trust the team again, I think they'd get somewhere, but it's going to take a while before that happens by the looks of it, yourself. But look,
I suppose looking at the how it finished as well. I mean, did it finish? We say, how you predicted last week that it would finish and how it actually did finish. Was it more or less around how you thought it was?
Not really. Hamilton knocking himself up the third was good. He was very lucky with a lot of things, including the two Ferraris falling.
Considering he was seventh in the qualifying, that wasn't too bad.
But I mean, getting the fifth wasn't that difficult. The two Ferraris made that very easy. But it was his home race, you know what I mean? Everyone expected him to do well. Nobody expected Lando Norris to come second. We were expecting top 5. Second? No, not a hope. Perez did a great job, I have to admit, from where he started, but he ended up 6th. I don't know what it is. There's a lot of teams at the minute where the second driver just isn't doing well. And Checo's a good driver. I can't figure out why. And I suppose the other surprise was Alonso being back in seventh. Yeah, it wasn't a race, but still at the same time,
unusual for Alonso, isn't it? Like to be
yeah, the car just wasn't there. I mean, his teammate finished 14th. That's not overly surprising, to be honest with you. I still think they should have stayed with Alonso and Vettel.
yeah, that's it. And of course, need we say it? Verstappen finished first.
Did he? Oh, that's a surprise.
yeah, you wouldn't think it, would you?
No, that was race win number 101 now. So there you go for
nearly as many as yourself.
Yeah, nearly as many as myself, and maybe it'll make it 12 in a row next. We can actually beat the record of the amount of consecutive wins.
Guinness Book of Records now will be under pressure for that one.
Yeah, absolutely, they will.
Driver of the day.
Driver of the day, Lando Norris. He did a fantastic job, fantastic qualifying. I mean, that if he had to stay at the second and sat there, maybe you'd have said, yeah, that was an okay drive. But the attack on Verstappen at the start, he was never going to stay ahead of him. But the attack he did on him at the start and hold them off for 5 laps. And of course, he did a good job of making sure he was staying ahead of Hamilton when his wingman, got overtaken. So, I mean, I think he did a very good job. I think Lando Norris definitely just needs a better car. And McLaren keep tweaking that up a little bit more. You never know. We might see a McLaren winning a year again. It'll be a nice thing to see, I'm sure... I'm sure a few of the ex-drivers that have been out there, including commentators, you can guess who that is, would like to see McLaren winning again.
David Coulthard, for example.
Yeah, David Coulthard, for example. he was a McLaren driver. I'm sure he'd love to see him back again. I'm sure he would. We all would.
That's it. And I suppose moving on to news.
Apple are making a Formula One movie. And they had a slight glimpse of the car there recently. Hang on a minute. That is the Apple car for their movie. It looks a bit like an old John Player special. We won't go there. Now, there has been a wee bit of news going on at the minute, and number one on that news is Danny Ricciardo is back. He is actually replacing Nick DeVries.
Come back, Ricciardo, we missed you.
I am telling you, I thought it was unusual that he wasn't going to be racing anymore. And then he took second or reserve driver. I thought, well, he deserves that, but he reserves better. But no, now Nick DeVries is out. Danny Ricciardo is in. That guy just won't go. I'm telling you, he's going to do well. I'm very pleased. I always liked Danny Ricciardo. Christian Horner actually came out and said a lot of good things, extremely positive things. And he also said Danny Ricciardo would do a lot on in the AlphaTauri car, which, it's not a great car, I have to admit, compared to what he's used to, probably. But, I think he'll do well at it, So he's on a loan for the year. That's the way they're putting it, actually. A loan for the year.
An emergency loan.
Yeah, you're on a loan. That's it. That's all you're going to get. You're borrowing him. I suppose other things that have happened.
Not a bad guy to borrow now, to be fair.
No, you wouldn't mind borrowing them at all now, even for Wexford Wheelie Bin races. Well, WWR racing, What was they going to say? Sergio Perez has come out and said there was a problem with the race. It's going to be a tricky season and a tricky race for him after a qualifying run. That's not surprising because, yes, it was a tricky race for him. It didn't really, I have to admit, do amazingly well. Oscar Piastri is focusing on the positives of McLaren as a massive step forward, despite, well, I suppose, look, Lewis Hamilton did get by with the safety car more so than overtake him. So maybe he's a little disappointed about that, but focus on the positives. I didn't see any negatives in Silverstone for McLaren. They could have easily got 2 and 3 without that safety car. They could have easily got 2 and 3. So focusing on the positives. What's the negative?
That's it. I mean, that's Formula One for you. And I suppose now next week then we'll be looking ahead to.
Next week we will be looking ahead to, as he scrambles because he's actually forgotten. That's a bad sign, isn't it? Some commentator I am. Hungary, right. Looking forward to Hungary. It's going to be on the 21st to the 23rd of July.
So we look forward to looking at the track and all the other things that we do next week. So
absolutely, it's a great little track actually, and I think Fernando Alonso is going to be happy to be there.
There you go. So listen, thanks very much for taking the time out to do to do for last word in Formula One, and we look forward to talking to you again next week.
No problems at all. Talk to you then.
No problem. Thanks very much. And that was Michael. That was Michael O'Grady, our Formula One expert.